All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Today we have the pleasure of hearing the life story of our neighbor and friend, Joe McKenney. Some background information on Joe. He was born in Elgin, Illinois, the fifth of 6 children. He attended and graduated high school in 1957 in Elmhurst, Illinois. And after high school, immediately enlisted in the Air Force. Joe spent 5 years as an aircraft mechanic and crew chief on multiple aircraft. After his service in the military, Joe entered the workforce, which always involved mechanical operations. He married his lovely wife, Pam, in 1965, and together they started their own business, the rental shops, in 1972. They sold the business in 2000, the year 2000, and retired in South Carolina. You are about to hear the amazing story of Joe and Pam McKenney, from a mechanic to one of the most successful entrepreneurs in South Carolina. Joe.
That doesn't sound like me. What's that story about? Hello, I'm Joe. That's what it says up there. I'm going to start just with a little bit of background. I don't know. Let me try that. Is that better? Can we hear
Well, just
better?
hold it up to your mouth. You just have to hold it up to your mouth.
Like an ice cream cone? What do I look like, the president? All right, yeah, born in 39 in Elgin, Illinois, fifth of 6 children. This is nothing, oh, poor me, or that kind of stuff. We're not, but a little background. I was born into a dysfunctional family that was headed by 2 alcoholic parents. So it was not a nice beginning, but that's behind us. To understand our financial status, we went to Immaculate Conception Catholic schools, went Catholic high school. Tuition was paid for by Catholic charities. So that's where I came from, but that's behind us. Yes, I graduated in 1957, and on my 18th birthday, August the 12th of 1957, the first thing I did, I went to the Air Force recruiting office, knocked on the door, and went in the Air Force. It couldn't have been better. When I was in high school, 2 things happened. Earlier in my life, I ended up working with an electrician. We had a fire at our house, and he would come wire the house, and he was kind enough at 8 years old to let me watch him and then join him. He would call me Knucklehead. Come on, Knucklehead, let's go to work. And so every night for 3 hours, he would wire the house, and he taught me how to do it. And I think that had a lot to do with why I ended up with a mechanical aptitude. In the years in high school, there were 3 of us that were addicted, if you would, to working on automobiles. Even at this young age of 14, 15 years old, we were taking engines apart, put them together. We would fix cars for people. We just loved mechanical stuff. So that's where the whole thing comes from in the mechanics. So we go in the Air Force in 57. I go through basic like everybody else. When you finish basic, they give you what you call your AFSC, which is what are you going to be? You're going to be a chef. You're going to be an air patrolman. You're going to be this, that. I was 4351, which was aircraft and engine maintenance. I could not have had a better thing happen. They sent me to Lackland Air Force Base for 16 weeks of aircraft and engine maintenance school. There were 32 in the class, and I graduated first in the class. Not because I'm smart. I got oil in my veins, I got grease under my fingers, and jewels in my pocket. That's what I do. And so I did graduate. So in the Air Force, this was the first series of airplanes. This was just one that we had 11 of these, and there were 4 of us who were required, or our job was to make them all airworthy, mechanically keep them flying. It wasn't a year or so, and I was fortunate to be promoted to crew chief on the famous Goonie Bird. It's called the DC-3, the C-47, the Skytrain, but that's the Goonie Bird. And so the difference there, every time that airplane took off, I was in it. So I accumulated a lot of crew time, not as a pilot, but we flew in that airplane for several years. I did have an honor in that towards the end, I was the first term airman to be promoted to the conveyor, the T-29. So I was crew chief on the T-29 and flew on that one until I was discharged in '62. I actually had a one-year extension. Many of you remember the Berlin build-up in '61 and '62. My AFSC was called critical, so they extended a year, and so I was on that one. When I got out of that, when I got out of the Air Force, I came back and I went with a company, Web Press Engineering, and they manufactured control systems for large printing presses. And so, but they made the controls. They didn't build the printing press, they made the controls for them. And in that respect, one of the fellows of the three of us at high school that worked together on cars was running that company. And so when I got back and he called me and said, "Do you have a job?" I said, "Not right now." He said, "You do." Well, we need you. So I went back there and they had me field installing the systems that were put on these big presses. And I was on the East Coast a lot of that time. Oh, wait a minute, no, that's too early. That's too early. That's the next one. I ruined the trick. I'm on the East Coast. I go to Rochester, New York to install components on a printing press up there. I finish the job, it's on a Friday night or something, doesn't matter. I take the American Airlines late flight out of Rochester to LaGuardia. The airplane takes off and a life-changing event happened on that takeoff. That lady right there came down the aisle to see if I wanted something to drink. You know, I still haven't got that drink. And there's kind of some humor in that one. We get to talking. There weren't many people on the airplane. I was in the back by myself, but we get to talking. And she's from Elmwood Park, Illinois. And at that time, we were living in Maywood. We weren't 5 miles apart. We didn't know each other, but we knew common friends. Oh, yeah, I know this guy. I went to that event. So we talked for the whole hour. And so I asked her then, I said, "You know, do you have your car at the airport? Because if you don't, I've got my company car. I can drop you off. Otherwise, she has to take a taxi." She said, "That would be great. That's how I'll meet you in the lounge." So we go in there. I go to the cocktail lounge. I order a drink. I drink. She doesn't show up. Well, I've been stood up before. I'm not thinking she's in uniform. She can't go in a cocktail room in a uniform, so she's in the passenger lounge. We both walked out the same door at the same second, at the same revolving door at the airport. That ought to tell us something, you know. But that's how and then we continued that relationship. I like to do things in a hurry. We had 7 dates. And I asked her, I knew I loved her, I asked her if she'd marry me. I was afraid if we had 8, she might say no. So I did 7 and she said yes. And so we got married in, make the right picture, January the 9th, 1965. I want to inject some humor in this. I mean, we got engaged in '64, but our wedding date is '65. Now, why do you have a picnic? Pick a date like that. Stewardesses cannot be married at that point, at that time. I always say, they could call, operators could call her at 3 in the morning, and if a man answers the phone, it's okay as long as it's not her husband. That's okay. So we picked 1965 January because if she flew over the first of the year, she got free airline tickets. And before that, she didn't. So we had to wait for the first of the year, and then also we could stay in the crew hotel agreement that they had on American. So we went down to Acapulco, free on the airplane at $18 a night on the road. There has to be a reason for everything. All right, we did that one. We got back there and we got married, and then we went to Fawcett Haynes. All right, I'm installing these systems on these printing presses. And there's a company in Chicago, well, headquartered in Rockville, Maryland, that ordered the 2 largest printing presses that had ever been built. They put one in Maryland, and they put one Lincolnwood or Chicago, Illinois. I was responsible for the one in Maryland. And this is not a little operation. I think I've got a picture of the press. Oh, if I turn it over, it probably works. All right, that's a single press. The ones that they put together were 4 of those into one printing press. It was very big, very complex, but that's basically a 1,000-foot-a-minute press. So I did the one in Maryland, and it took 6 months for them to put it in and put the systems on it. We cranked it up. It took about 10 days to get the bugs out of it, and it was running. Full press, doing fine. I finished that. When I get back to Chicago area, and the duplicate of that press was in Lincolnwood, Illinois. And it was delivered 5 or 6 months behind this one. And so they've got it installed, and they started up, and it won't print. Well, it'll print, but it won't stop smearing. The installer, the press manufacturer, the people from my company, the ink people, everybody are there. For 5 weeks, they can't get it to stop. And the guy that owned the company, Fawcett Haynes, he said, you had some guy in Maryland that started the one out there. Why don't you come look at this one? Well, so they called me and said, come look at this. Again, we're going to go back to mechanical aptitude. It's just something I had. So they call me, I go out there and look at it, and I look at what they printed for about 3 or 4 hours, and I think what this is wrong with it. So I tell the press manufacturer that I want him to pull 1 roller out of that whole thing, and I think that'll fix it. Well, they got upset. They said, it's your fault because it's the controls. And the owner of the company said, do what he says. Because it took them about 6 hours to take the frame off, take that roller out, put another one in. They put that roller in, we started the press. The smear was gone. It printed, zing, just like this. So this is like 8 or 9 o'clock, and all they're running now is dummies. They're just trying to get it to stop smearing. So they're going to go to live production next morning. So I tell the fellow that owns the company I work for, I said, I want to be here in the morning. When they crank this thing up, if it throws up, I want to be here when it throws up and see why. And he said, Joe, we've already committed you here for 2 more days for the startup. And they started the next morning, and it went fine. No problems, they're printed like it's supposed to, full speed production, everything is fine. The second day I'm there waiting, the chief engineer over the operations for that company comes to me and he said, Joe, I want to talk to you. So we go in his office and he said, you've been fired by your company. And I said, wouldn't they fire me? They do fire me. And they had talked to the company and said, look, we want to hire Joe as assistant plant engineer. They had 1,600 employees, they had 3 plants, they had benefits, they had retirement, they had health care. All of the things. I'm working for a company that has 30 people. And so they said for the future, we can provide them a better future. And it was my call. I wasn't fired. They said the company understood it. I took the job, everything was fine. So I took the job. Why not? Go to work. I'm going to tell you, they had a contract. Now, this is going to be hard to believe that it went on. This would be the 5th year that they were doing it. It was a very large contract with a company, Cole Office Furniture. Many of you may know Litton Industries. It was part of the Litton Industries group. And they had a catalog, print 1,250,000 catalogs, 96 page, but they had to print the name of the individual Hilton head office supplier on the front and the back. And you couldn't do that in the printing operation. They worked on this thing for 4 years, the best they could do. It took 8 people, 2 presses, 10 months to get the production out to delivery. Because you had 2.5 million impressions you had to make by hand after you printed it. And the customer didn't like it, we didn't like it, but there's nothing else you could do about it. We stuck with it. So the plant engineer asked me, he said, Joe, go take a look at this thing and see if there's anything you can see that could be done with it. And I looked at everything they had done, all the trials and failures and everything, and said, it doesn't fit what we do. I went outside the industry, I went to the packaging industry. And I said, they print milk cartons, cardboard boxes, and all these things. Why can't we print like that? So I got with a packaging company and built packaging presses, and I had to modify a press for me. And we got a press and it worked. And we could do, with the production rate, with a small amount of cost and a production rate and 3 people, we could provide the job completed in 90 days. And so I took that information back to the chief engineer and I said, this is what it is, this is what it costs, here's the production rate, this is what we can do. He said, all right, let's talk about it. He came back a couple of days later and he said, Joe, first, we don't have the room in the plant for it. Second, it has nothing to do with what we do. It's a totally different industry that you would be injecting into our plant. He said, I tell you what we're gonna do. You and I are gonna buy the press and we're gonna run the job for them. Now that's but we're gonna do this without being known. This would be a story, and I'll just touch a part of it because it is kind of humorous. When we do this, she's working under her maiden name. I'm working under my brother-in-law's name in Kentucky, so I don't forget who I am. The mafia is chasing us around in Chicago while we're running this thing. But we cranked it up, we got it going, and it worked. Now, something we found out later, the family that owned the business knew we were doing it. And one of the sons had too much to drink one night in Detroit at a meeting, and he got us in the hall and he asked, how is everything going at the printing company? And said, uh-oh. He said, oh, we know. The customer's never been happier, we've never been happier, the job's never run smoother, keep doing it. Don't let it interfere with your work at the plant. And so we did it for less money than they were paying, but not a lot less. So in that 90 days, we made 4 times our annual salary in the 90-day period. We would run this at night after work. We'd go back, leave at 5:30, go there at 6 and run till midnight, and then run on Saturday. But we did it in 90 days. The last thing we did in 70 days. So we got pretty good at these things. Where am I now? Oh, okay.
Moved to South Carolina.
All right. Now, the company, this big company at that point, was then sold to new people. And when they got a hold of what we were doing, they said, you have to give us that company or we're going to fire you. And I said, let me think, I'm not a math major, but 4 times the annual times 1 says I'll be out of here by noon. And then they had to give us the job the next day, which drove them nuts. But we did it anyhow. And so then they went to tape and label and did away with the printing completely. And so that was the end of that. I got with a company that did controls and stamp for metal stamping, heavy metal stamping. And we sold through representatives. And I had a rep series. He had Tennessee, he had Virginia and North Carolina and one in South Carolina. And he wanted me to let him, he was one of my reps. And I said, I really don't think I can give you South Carolina without any representation. You don't have anybody there. All right, smart aleck, why don't you quit your job and become a partner with us? The word partner sounds interesting. You know? Doesn't mean anything, but yeah, I'll be a partner. So I quit the job, we moved to South Carolina. We buy a house down there, we get down there, and the house that we buy is wired for wired for an electric clothes dryer. The one that's coming from Chicago is a gas clothes dryer. Well, it's new, I don't want to lose that one, but we have gas heat. So I crawl under the house and look, sure enough, there's a gas furnace, there's a gas line over there. I can tap into that gas line, run it into the house, pop it up in the utility room, put it together slightly, hook it up to my dryer will work. Now, why am I telling you that? Why do you really care if I can thread a piece of pipe? I mean, is this a master's degree or something in pipe threading? That event, that piece of pipe, that dryer, and that installation is what brought us right in the front door at Tide Point today. That was the single event that changed what we did. And we'll see why. The partnership failed after 2 years, and we can point fingers whose fault, doesn't matter, it failed. And so I'm out of work. When I put that dryer in, I had to drive all the way across town to the other side of town to rent the pipe threader, the cutter, the vise, and things I needed to make that installation. So I say, now another thing, when that failure, and that's the last time I did anything in my life. And I was in 72, that's the last time I did anything. Everything from that date was we. We were a team together. And I asked them, I said, Pam, we need one of these funny little stores that rent things. And we opened what we call the rental shop. I have the logo up there somewhere. There it is. There's the rental shops. We opened that July 1st, 1972. Now, we had a lot of money to start the business, which was $6,000 total. Total. We bought $5,000 worth of toys. which is a lawnmower, a chainsaw, the little things you know you're gonna need. But I didn't know what the store needed until we were open. Anyhow, we opened this thing July. There's something on the paper. July shop 372. There's a number, I know. $372 was the gross volume of the store for the month of July. For the month, not the hour, not the week. That was the gross sales for the month. Now that'll frighten you. I think, no, I gotta pay rent, take care of 2 girls, pay a mortgage. I don't think $372 will do it. So I came up with the answer. I said, I don't know how to do this. I'll hire somebody to watch the store and I'll go get a job. Well, wait a minute, now the business is gonna fail and I'm not gonna know why. So I came up with a better idea. I'll open the store at 7:30, I'll close it at 5:30. I go to the steel fabrication plant and I get a job on the night shift from 6 to 1 in the morning. And I grind the steel beams for bridges by hand on the night shift. And then I did that for 7 months. It is wow, I think back, how do I do that? But that's what you have to do. This isn't like, I didn't have a choice, I had to feed them and I had to have something to do. So that's how we survived 7 months. January the 1st, 1973, a book came out. They call it a telephone book. The kids today would say, where do you put the battery? But in the middle of it were these pages that were yellow, and they called them the yellow pages. And we had an ad in the yellow pages for the rental shops on that side of town, which was a long way from the other side, but it was the growing part of town. New mall, they were building a new high school, it was a growing area. When that telephone book hit the street, the store went from here to that, literally. You couldn't answer the phone because we were the only rental store on that side of town. So this thing really started to take off. Again, we still didn't have any money. I went to the SBA and got a $15,000 SBA loan, which I thought was all the money in the world. But we bought $15,000 worth of more toys, and we rented $15,000 more toys. And it kept growing and growing. We outgrew that store. We moved into another location that they wouldn't give us a lease because they were selling it, but said you can move in and we'll give you 90 days notice if we sell it. And that's a gamble. We stayed there 4 years and didn't sell it. We even added a building onto it. And it kept growing, we got more and more inventory. And then it got to the point where we needed more and we went down and bought a piece of property on the interstate. Let me see if I got a picture of the stores. All right, that's one of the stores. That's the last store that we built, and right now it's under another name because they sold. After we sold the company, it was sold again. But that's what the stores looked like. And this is what we did. We rented equipment like this. We sold equipment in the stores. Whoop, back up from that one. We don't want that one to be seen. What did I do here?
Go up.
All right.
You're going the wrong way.
I'm going the wrong way. Okay, but I just wanted them to see what the stores look like. This is what we did. We ended up with 4 of these stores, and then we ended up with some party stores. We'll get there as we go along. All right, we opened the rental shop. We got that one. We went to South Carolina. We started the rental shop. Uh-oh. Then it comes 1979. And the business is doing well. So I get the general manager and our chief mechanic to go to lunch, and we're going to talk about new equipment that we have to purchase, equipment that has to be replaced, just to get an imaginary budget. Now, I got to get back to where the partnership is. When we started this thing, I can't count to 4, and she can't change a light bulb. So it worked perfect. She took care of the money, and I took care of the operations side. I didn't care about it. We couldn't tell each other what to do. I couldn't tell her how to do the taxes, and she couldn't tell me how to change the light bulb. So it worked fine. So in that situation, we got this going, and I'm having lunch with these guys, and there's disturbance at the front of the restaurant. That I hear some woman kind of screaming, and the doors come open, and it's Pam. And she's crying, and I thought, oh, 1 or 2 things. The store's on fire, or a customer got hurt. It's one of those 2 things. And it wasn't. It was a very big, 1978, I got it on it. I was selected Small Business Person of the Year for the state of South Carolina. That meant a lot. We got to take the kids to Washington and Strom Thurmond and greet the teeth. Jimmy Carter was president. So that was quite a operation for us. We were very happy with that. Okay, we got that. Oh, then Pam gets involved in the association, and she becomes president of the Carolina Rental Association, which was North and South Carolina, for all the Carolina people. And she did a wonderful job. She's really, really good. All right, now, this is when the insanity of my life comes in. So I'm a working owner. I don't sit at the desk. We got into bigger equipment. We had to have an 18-wheeler, a tractor trailer. I had a CDL license. I would drive that load. I did whatever had to be done. So I'm working on the counter, and a customer comes in, and he said he wants to rent something. And I look at it, I said, I can't rent to you. Why not? You don't pay me. You're 90 days past due. And I said, why don't you pay me? He said, I work 6 days a week. I don't know. I said, what do you do? He said, I pour concrete walls. That's interesting. Have you got a job going on right now? He says, yeah. Get in the truck. I want to go see it. So we're getting out. We drive to his job site, and I like what I see as a product. But I can tell from the curb, this guy has no idea what he's doing. I mean, concrete weighs 4,000 pounds a yard. This guy's going to put in a wall in a bucket. I said, this is not going to work, so we're expensive. These are magazines there's where Pam's ARA president, we'll get to that. This is what we did. This is what he did. These are the forms. This is the type of thing, foundations that we poured, different ones like that. You know, that's the type of work he did. We poured retaining walls. Well, he didn't know how to do it. I bought a concrete pump, which was not cheap. It was about $50 for a concrete pump, but at least we get concrete in the wall. And he didn't know how to pour them square or anything, so I did go to Atlanta, worked in the ditches for a week, came back, and I trained the crew. And I told him, all right, you go sell. Well, then he had lost the confidence of the builders, so they wouldn't talk to him. And I said, let me think, you can't pour, you can't sell. What are you doing here? He said, I'm out of here. And he walked away. And I ended up with the company. I didn't buy it, I didn't start it, and I didn't steal it. I just ended up with it. So we ran that, and it got to be a pretty good sized company. We added crews. It was taking them 3.5 to 4 weeks to pour one foundation. We were pouring 3 a month, and had another section that was pouring retaining walls for the highway department, for developers that had steps in their development stages, and so we had to put the range in. So that worked out to be pretty good. There's always humor in life, whatever happens. So I'm not smart enough to know better. What I'm doing, running the wall on a job, where what I'm doing is making sure that the windows and the doors are secured properly, because once you start pouring that concrete, you've got concrete. If a window floats, it comes to the top, there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm checking the wall, I trip, I fall off, down onto the debris down below. I fractured L3, L4. So now I'm in the hospital, it's on a Friday night. I get the weights off my feet, my shoulders are tied up, Pam's next to me. And these are things that are hard to believe that happen. A guy walks in the hospital room. I don't know him, anything about him. You're Joe McKenney. I said, yeah. You own the poured wall company. I said, yeah. He said, I want to buy that company. I said, really? Now, as much pain as I'm in, he doesn't know it. I'd give it to him. But he waited too long. He said, I'll be back Monday. I want to buy that company. Well, I thought he's either smoking something that's not legal. This guy's crazy. He shows up Monday with his lawyer. He's serious. They start negotiating a little bit. He wants to see some financials. And I know who knew what every penny in the company was. Got him that information. In 15 days, these people have a check to buy that company for a hell of a lot more than I thought it was worth. Let them fall off the wall. It's their turn. So, and that's what happened. I got this company, built it up to that point, and sold it. It's a tragedy. It didn't work. He went out of business, but he bought it in 15 days. He owned it. All right, we got that done. All right, here comes another part of life. This is called a passion to an obsession to an addiction. Sounds like marijuana, right? And here's where it starts. That's number one. I got my pilot's license earlier, and then I go to bed, I want to own an airplane. All right, you're going to have an airplane. Now don't get too excited. I paid less for that airplane right there than you did the car you've got in front of the house. It was placed down here, so it wasn't that big. But the bug, my love of aviation, my love of flying, became. Oh, with Mike up. All right. I just love flying airplanes. So that one then went to this. I had to go faster, and so I got a twin engine. I got my multi-engine rating, got my instrument rating, and there's a funny story of that. When I first got that thing and got checked out, I got a friend in Spartanburg, South Carolina, in the rental business, and one in North Carolina. I said, I want to take a trip in the airplane. Oh, let's go. So we put our wives on a commercial and sent them to Anchorage, Alaska, and I jumped in that thing and flew to Anchorage, Alaska, just for the fun of it. Crazy. But it didn't stop there. All right, there's a little bit bigger one, a little bit nicer airplane than I had. Then things got bad. That's a pressurized twin engine, non-icing aircraft, and I got my, what they call a 135 single pilot charter license. Commercial license. And so I flew charter, I put them in charter, and then I flew them for about 6 or 7 years. I flew about over 4,000 hours flying charter and corporate and pilot service type of thing. I was addicted to flying airplanes. That's a turbine airplane. I was flying for Freightliner truck. And I was flying them on my airplane. And then they decided they were going to buy an airplane. The president of Freightliner called me and said, we're buying one. We're sending it down there, we want you to test fly it. I said, why am I test flying your airplane? You're gonna fly it. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna fly your airplane and leave mine on the ground. Well, what's it gonna take for you to be our pilot? It's simple, you have to buy my airplane. Wrote a check. That wasn't very smart either. I sold it for a lot more than I paid for it. So he bought my airplane, but then he got what we said, he wanted to smell kerosene and go faster. So he bought, this is what they call a turboprop, which in essence is a jet engine with a fan on the outside. But it's a turboprop airplane. And he bought that one, and the problem was I wouldn't qualify to run it. I wasn't to fly it. I wasn't checked out and released on that airplane. What's it going to take? I'd have to go to flight safety on it. He said, go. It's $10,000 for 5 days to get checked out on that one. I went and got checked out, and I flew that airplane 600 hours in 1 year for Freightliner. So, I never did say I was smart. All right, then what do we do? Okay, in our tool stores, we had parties. And it was a small amount. We'd have 10 tables and 50 chairs or something like that, some coffee pots, a little bit of linen, but not a big amount. But we had enough so that people that wanted to have a small yard party, they'd get card tables and things like that. But always it was at the wrong place. If we did 10 tables, there were 9 of them here, and 1 was across town at the other store. And finally I said, if we put all of our parties together in one store, we would have a better source of inventory control and bigger parties. So we opened a company, we called it Celebrations. Now the idiot over here with the sunglasses on his head sometimes called my son-in-law, and he couldn't change a light bulb either. So I said, well, send him down and let him do the party store. We might have done $100,000 a year in party rental on all 4 stores. He had it to $2 million a year in 2 years. He can do party rental stores. What year was the governor?
So for Governor Lago?
Yeah.
The one we did
I think it was like 96.
Yeah. 96.
96. Well, he got the order for the governor's inauguration in 1996. And I'm only telling that because of the scope of what it was. There were 7,500 people. We did the tables, the chairs, the linen, the china, the glassware, the flatware, the dance floor, the staging for that party. So it got to be a pretty good sized party store. Very good sized party store. All right, we got Celebrations open. This lady right here, 50% of this business, she gets involved in the board of the American Rental Association out of Moline, Illinois, which is the association that covers the entire country. She's on the board for 3 years and becomes the first president, female president of the American Rental Association in, I better not be wrong, 97, wasn't it? Yeah, 97. So she's president. And I like to tell the story. That's the year I changed my name. Because she was speaking in London at the National Association there, and they introduced the president of the American Rental Association, Mrs. Pamela McKenney, and the president's gentleman, if you would. So they call me PG. Changed my name. In 92, there's a party store for sale in Atlanta, and a broker calls, I have no interest in going to Atlanta. And he keeps calling and he keeps calling, and so I call a friend over there in Atlanta and I say, tell me about that. He said there's nothing but junk. But the guy keeps calling, so I got a plan. I said, come on, I got a general manager, fly over there, and I go in there. They've got 6,000, 7,000 chairs that are so rusty you'd be afraid to sit on them. They have maybe 800 tables that the slivers are so bad if you put a linen on it, it's going to tear it off trying to get it off of it. It's junk. But then I look around and I see a good linen system, a good same computer system we were on, a good dishwasher line, good warehouse racking. The trucks were worn out, we didn't care about, and a lot of other good china and stuff like that, pretty good. We ended up, fairly or unfairly, it doesn't matter, I bought the company for 11% of the asking price. So, either they asked too much or I paid too little. My youngest daughter and the helper over there, and she was very familiar with the computer system, and she was there maybe 10 or 12 minutes, and she called back and said, they're stealing you blind. They're only reporting about half of what they're doing. So we straightened it out. She straightened it out. We put inventory in there. We did things like that to get it going. I want to talk for a minute now about relations with our employees, because the success of the company, as I feel, is the relationship you'd had with your employees. I had a good one in Columbia in the fact that I was working. I would load trucks and I would do all that kind of thing. So in this store, when you came out of the showroom, right behind the showroom on a full length about this long, was the laundry line and the dishwasher line. Now, if you've never been to Atlanta in the summertime, it's called when they get hot. Now they're back there generating laundry, linen system, which is dryers, ironers, dishwashers, hotter than blazes. Nobody asked for anything. Nobody suggested anything. Maybe 5 or 6 weeks into this thing, I got a contractor. I said, I want you to run a wall all the way down there. I want you to insulate the wall. I want you to tie it into the roof line and insulate it. And I want you to put as much tonnage of air conditioner as it takes to put in that area and get the working environment down to 75 degrees. Now, what did we do? The employees realized that the new owners cared about them. It's the greatest thing that can have is a confidence between the owners and the people. And when we air conditioned that spot, not being asked to, it changed the complete atmosphere of the employee relationship. Even in the warehouse, they realized, hey, the new people think about us because we changed our working environment. It really made it fun. And there's some humor in everything. The stores in South Carolina, I kind of ramble. Every store knew what the other store did. It wasn't a secret. St. Andrews was the biggest one. Each store, the money that they did each month, everybody knew. Dunsville was the second largest store. So a month comes along where Dunsville does more business than St. Andrews. The employees out of their pocket buy a funeral wreath, a big funeral wreath with a sympathy card, and have it delivered to St. Andrews store because we came in second. It wasn't long before we sent it back to them. but that's kind of the atmosphere we worked in. The people got along. We had 125 employees when we got through this thing. And we all worked together and laughed together. And I felt had a great environment. Where are we at, Mom?
All this has been
Well, we're down to, all right. Comes 1999. I'm 60 years old. I figure if I sell the company, then you could be involved in something like a 3-year payout, a 3-year workout, a 5-year workout, something like that. So I asked both of my daughters, do either one of you want the company? And they said, not really, no. So we didn't market it, we just let words leak out that we could be for sale. Because of her relationship as president of ARA, the industry knew who we were, who she was, and that type of thing. And it wasn't very long, 72 hours, something. There's an English company that was going to come into the U.S. and get into the market. They had bought a couple of smaller stores. And so they called and they say, we would like to look at your store. Okay. So they sent 3 people over there. They sent one to look at the books and a couple to look at the stores. I'm taking the ones around to the stores. And they sent one upstairs to that little lady over there that's so tough, my daughter. She pays all the bills and has the checkbook. And so the guy from England goes up there and they chat for a minute. He says, okay, Jeanette, I would like to see your accounts payable file. And she said, I'm sorry, it's Monday, I don't have one, but at noon the postman will be here. No, you don't understand. I want to see the file of the bills that you owe. And she said, sir, I pay the bills on Friday. She was down to the point that there was never a bill left in that store Friday that wasn't paid before she went home. Because we had gotten to the point then that we did everything on a cash basis. I could get into a long argument with business people about, don't pay your bills so fast, hold them 90 days, you get the use of their money free for 90 days. We didn't follow that. We paid them immediately, and consequently we got the best service, we got the best pricing. An example would be there was a termite called, backhoe called termite became extremely popular. And there was a 3, 4, 5 month wait list. We'd get one in there and she'd hand him a check, $15,000, $18,000 for it, it's paid for. So I called the guy up and I said, I really need another one. He said, Joe, I can't get you one until Thursday. Everybody else is waiting 4 months. But they know they're gonna get paid Friday. And we've been doing it for years, and so money talks, and we'll see what works. And so she had the bills all paid. And they went through, I took them through 3 stores, and they're saying, well, the operations people, that's enough. I said, no, we got to go to Atlanta. We got a store over there. Now we've seen enough. Okay. So they leave, and this is in November of '99. Pam and I are going on a 30-day cruise in January. So the 15th of December, I haven't heard anything from these people. I call them up to tell them, we're leaving the country for a month. I'm just wondering, do you have any interest in our company? Oh yeah, we're buying it. What do you mean you're buying it? We haven't even talked about it. Oh, we know what it's worth. Oh, really? Okay. This would take us 90 days to get financing out of London, and then we'll do it. All right, we're going on a cruise. We get on the ship, we're on the ship about a week. Jeanette gets a hold of us with, I guess, fax at that time. They've got their financing, they're ready to buy. Okay? They send us an offer. And this is kind of a nice operation because we're negotiating to sell the company without having eye-to-eye eyeball confrontation. They made a position, we looked at it, the lawyer looked at it, we looked at it, we would counter. You wait a week, they countered back. You wait a week, we counter back. By the time that cruise ended, 97, 98% of the deal was done. We had to negotiate a few things about guarantee of inventory condition and things like that, but it was basically done. And they bought that company. It was in for a lot more than we thought it was worth. So they bought it, they owned it. There's a tragedy to that story because they didn't know what they were doing. In 42 months, they went broke. We had 125 people. Some lost their jobs, not all of them, but because then they sold that store, so they sold it in pieces to other people. But it was really a tragedy because it was a well-running, well-operating machine. Even our account said the first thing they did was change the name. Now we're the dominant player in the community. The rental shop name has been there for 30 years. First thing they do is change the name. And you knew right then, this is not gonna work. Mike's working for him, and in the party thing, and I'm gonna use an example, he's 4 yellow tablecloths for a wedding Saturday. And he calls and says, I need 4. Well, you fill out an application, send it to Denver, Denver will forward it to London to get approval. He said the wedding's Saturday. He said he knew right then, they are not going to make it. This is not going to fly. So we sold them the company. That's another one of the airplanes I had. That's Celebrations of Parties, the Celebration store. And these are examples of things that we did. There's my lady. There's a driving force. The year that she's down there, it says the president of the American Mental Association. That's what we bought, Abby. All right, the chair worship. We got the 2 stores, we got chairs. Between us, we've got 10, 12,000, something chairs more. Oh, so we got about 10 or 12,000 chairs. And the only way to wash a chair is with a bucket, a brush, and a garden hose. Now, when you got 10,000 chairs to wash, that's a lot of buckets, a lot of washing. And it just didn't, and it had never been any other way to do it. I get in my truck, I go to a car wash, I sit behind the car wash for 2 hours, and I watch them wash cars. And I said, now wait a minute, they're washing big cars, little cars, tall cars, wide mirrors, rears. They got antennas here, antennas there. Every car goes in, every car gets rinsed, gets soaked, gets brushed, gets rinsed, gets blown off, and comes out the other end, and all the parts are there. That sounds pretty good. There's no way if they can do that, we can't wash a chair. So I go back, and we had a mechanic. If you give him a welder and a cutting torch, he could build a Tesla 5 years ago. He was that good with it. And he and I sat down, and we're going to design a chair washing machine. Now, did the first one work? No, the first one tore the legs off of it. But we kept trying. And we worked on this thing, and I finally got this chair washer, which is right there, that's the machine, to function and wash chairs. So we go to the National Convention in New Orleans, and we get a booth that has water, electricity. We put the machine, because you can't tell somebody that thing's going to wash a chair. They got to see it. So we put it to work with an operating machine in the booth. Now, this has never been done in the history of the industry. It became the top. Contractors that have never sat in a chair are coming to see this thing. It was so funny. It's 10 people deep to look at this thing. A fellow reaches over the counter in the middle of the first day and hands me a purchase order. He said, I want one of those. How long will it take? I said, sir, if I don't sell 10 of them, I'm not going to make them. If I sell 10 of them, you'll be number 1. In the next 8 to 12 hours, we sold 46 machines at $5,000 a piece and didn't have a clue how the hell I was going to make them. These guys, we're building one in our shop with a welder. Now I got 46 of them out of order. But there was a machine manufacturer that sold, like everybody else, coming to that booth to see this noisy machine. And he came over and he asked me, how are you going to make that machine? I said, I had no idea. He said, I do. I'm a machine builder. I've got to come here in Asheville, North Carolina. We're going to build them for you. I said, okay, let's talk about that. And he went over the machine and looked at it in detail. And said, you know, I believe, he said, $2,100 on a skid ready to ship. We were selling it for $5,000 and he buying the parts. I said, I'm not smart, but that sounds like a good deal. So he got an order for 50 of them right there. We gave him a check for half down because he had to buy the stuff. Starts manufacturing, called back, make it 75. The orders are still coming in. That company right there is still operating today. That's 31 years ago. Wow. They're still in that same machine. I sold that machine to one of the employees that was running that apartment and his family. They wanted it. They got their financing together. And it was really not what we did for a business, but it was a very good one. And so they got together, raised their money, and bought that company. I was doing a hell of a lot of selling companies. I sound like a broker. But they bought them. But that machine today is still the only machine that automatically washes chairs. It washes them 600 an hour, blows the water off of them, and stands them up and gets them clean. But that was one more goofy thing that I did. We sold the rental center. All right, I got to have the last piece of paper. Yeah, that's what I got. Now, and before we sold it in 99, so it had to be 98. In 98, I was given what they call the Order of the Palmetto. And to describe what the Order of the Palmetto is the highest civilian honor awarded by the governor of South Carolina. Which, I got 10 minutes? Okay, I'm through anyhow. So that was a very big honor, for the highest honor the state gives out. How did we get it? By the time the business got this size and was running, we were able to do some charitable things. We were able to, with an airplane, a family had a problem somewhere, I could take the family to something like that. So there were things that we did, but that was a real honor to be the highest honor that they're giving. So the business is gone, and we've got that. And we came to Tide Point, and we saw nice landscaping, and we saw pretty houses, and we saw a nice swimming pool, we saw a nice workout facility, we saw a nice outdoor pool, we saw a nice building, we saw a nice dining room, and we saw all these nice things. And we moved into Tide Point, and that's not what we found. We moved in and found the nicest people, the most friendly, willing to meet you, willing to greet you, willing to share. You are the oil that makes Tide Point run. And that means a lot. We really, really appreciate being here, and we find you as wonderful neighbors. I'm going to tell one more story. My youngest daughter said, let's realize you're talking about the things you've accomplished, but also things you've overcome. The most important date in my day was January the 9th, 1965, when she walked down the aisle and said, yes, I do. The next most important date in my life was February the 17th, 1973, when she walked in and said, I don't. I don't want to live with you anymore. I don't want to be married to you. I want a divorce and I'm leaving. And I knew she meant it. I told you in the beginning I was born into a family with 2 alcoholic parents. It didn't stop though. I'm an alcoholic. In 1973, she had all she could handle. And that was February the 17th. On February the 18th, I went to AA and I picked up a white chip. That'll be 51 years ago this February. I did not touch the drink. But we are a team. She loves her Chardonnay. She loved her Chardonnay in 73. This lady right here went 15 years without a drink to support me. Pretty special. That's our story. All done. I think now it's time to get drunk and disorderly.
Do you have any questions for Joe?
Joe, we'd like to open up a business with you and me.
He wants to open up a business. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed Joe with a great story. I told you it was an amazing story. Amazing story. Next month we have another amazing story from Hans Wienerkamp, who will be our speaker. And he'll tell you an amazing story from Europe to the United States and onward. I hope you come. That'd be Monday, November 13th. So have a good evening. Enjoy. Thank you for coming.